Hey, welcome to the Open House Show. It's Jesse Meadow. We've got a great show for you today. First and foremost, I want to congratulate all of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans that we have out there, including myself. We had an incredible win last night. I know it has nothing to do with schools, but a rare shout out for Bucs fans that usually live in misery. We had a great night last night. So we have a great guest coming from all the way from Brooklyn, New York, Torsie Judkins, Director of Admissions and Enrollment at the International School of Brooklyn. We're going to be continuing our conversation from last week, which was about specialty programs and how those niche markets can really build enrollment. Today is going to be specific with language immersion and also IB programs. So without further ado, we'll get started here. There we go. Torsie, how are you, sir?
Jesse, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. No problem. No problem. Thanks for coming on the show. I know this is a busy time of year. There's starting to be a lot of moving parts. I've already started having conversations about summer programs. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So I know between re-enrollments, the next enrollment season coming up and summer plans, everything's starting to culminate here for you guys. And I appreciate you taking the time with us.
Absolutely. In fact, our notifications for grades 1 through 8 goes out tomorrow. So we're knee deep in it. And last week was kindergarten notification. And if you haven't quite experienced anything until you do kindergarten admissions, private school admissions in the New York City area. So,
oh man, I know we're going to dive deep into it, so I'm excited to hear about that because I can only imagine, with that region, how competitive it might be, and the different situations that you guys get involved in, and obviously we'll get into what draws them to you. So but first off, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your journey in independent schools, how you got into admissions, maybe ISB in general, and then what kind of excites you about enrollment management. What do you look forward to?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and I attended Durham Academy as a student. And then I actually was fortunate enough to go back and work at Durham Academy as a faculty member and an administrator. So right. I got an opportunity to join the admissions team at my alma mater down at Durham Academy. And so that's where my passion started. With admissions and enrollment. It's great because you get to help shape a school and what that school community looks like, and to give kids opportunities like myself to really change their lives and to go on to a wonderful independent school and start their journey in life, and be in smaller class settings, get an opportunity to really build these relationships with faculty and staff. And it was a wonderful experience for me. And I'm so happy that I was able to get into admissions down at Durham Academy.
That's awesome. Yeah, my first experience in admissions was at my alma mater, and it was great to be involved. It re-engages you, it re-excites you on everything, and then obviously it's not only selling the school, it's selling your personal experience there. What that did for you and what you saw that do for your friends. And but that's a great point. And kind of cycling through, watching those kids grow. Especially when you met them as like a, kind of a nervous, I don't know what we're going to do, family together, making decisions, and where do I go? What do I do? And then the next thing you know, they're graduating, they're alumni, they're coming back. In some positions, you start to see them working in some positions, and to watch that life cycle go through, it's a special experience, the independent schools have. And I mean, any school has, but because of those sizes, we have the advantage of being able to really have those relationships and build them with them on a much more personal level. That's awesome.
Absolutely. So, and it was nice to go back and work with some former faculty members and at Durham Academy. So that was great. And it was just a different relationship. You go from being your physics teacher to one of your coworkers at school. And then you explaining their program. And it was nice that I was able to use my personal experience. So.
Yeah, it was funny. They joked on me a lot. We had several faculty members that were, teachers of mine when I came back, and it took me a few months to transition to start calling them by their first name, not Mr. and Mrs.
Exactly.
We had that one teacher that, he's Mr. Carlo. I don't care how old I am, how old he is, what our relationship is.
You have to come Mr. Yeah,
he was always Mr. Carlo.
Well, especially, and it was also, these were some of my classmates' parents as well.
Yep.
So then you start jumping into, I can't call you by your first name. You're Billy's dad, you know? So so that was another difficult part in transitioning to being back in my alma mater. So
that's so funny. Excellent. All right. Well, let's transition a little bit. Let's get to the ISB, the content piece of the program. I guess generally speaking, tell us a little bit about International School of Brooklyn, what draws families to it, and then we can kind of get into the details of those programs you guys offer.
Yeah. So we are a language immersion school with the International Baccalaureate curriculum. It's a school that's pre-K 3 through 8th grade. And so our kids come and they start off with the full immersion in our 3s, 4s in kindergarten. And eventually we move to a dual language program. And then when they get into middle school, they're able to then pick up a third language. So if you started off on the kindergarten, in our French track, you would be on the French track through 5th grade. And then when you got to middle school, you continue to take classes in French, several classes in English, and then you pick up Spanish as well, with the hopes that you leave ISB at the end of 8th grade trilingual. And so you get a 13, 14-year-old that speaks, and not only speaks, but reads and writes 3 languages. It becomes a very easy high school placement process for them.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, the high school, that's entering the workforce, having that kind of stuff on your resume.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so great to see because and our head of school, Joe Santos, talks about this all the time about having that capacity to learn multiple languages at such a young age, and the frontal cortex part of the brain that and the way that works. And so it's not uncommon to have a 3 or 4-year-old in our building that speaks a couple languages at home and then a different language at school. And so it's great to see these kids as they transition into young adults speaking all these languages and learning and speaking in all these languages.
So what languages are offered? Is it a specific criterion, or does it differ depending on where you are, or you have what you have?
Yeah, so we have what we have. We have we have French or Spanish, and obviously English is incorporated as well. So those are the only 2 languages. Of course, I think there's 27 languages spoken at home amongst our families. So
wow,
it's not uncommon for a parent to knock on the door and say, hey, can you start offering German or Japanese? So we're a very diverse community as well. Our students have citizenships to over 60 countries, speak over 25 languages at home. And we have it's also a very diverse school as well from a racial and ethnicity standpoint as well.
Yeah, you guys are in the melting pot. You're New York City. If you were to represent your demographic or at least local area at all, you would expect to find a lot of that, racial and cultural diversity, and then you add on these layers that you're internationally focused as a school. That's a big part of who you guys are. I'm curious. Language. Everyone. It's always that topic that's more of just about communication, but it's so much more to that than that. How does that program, really help sell that international piece? Students really learning that culture, because you can't really understand, read, write, and feel that language without learning the culture of that language as well. So how does that come into play?
It's in the curriculum, and then through the International Baccalaureate program, the inquiry-based learning. It's a natural transition. From the day they step their foot in the building, especially our younger kids, right away, our teachers, who are all native speakers to the language, are speaking in the language to them, and they're learning, from day one. So it's a very easy to transition. It's unlike, traditional independent, English-speaking independent schools. They really have to focus on, okay, so you're taking Spanish. We're going to learn all about Spanish-speaking countries in that 140-minute class per week. We're going to do our best to not only teach you the language, but then also teach you cultures. This is woven in all day long, all the time at ISB.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. We crammed a lot in, and I got to say, like, I was very intimidated. My Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, I was in a class where the teacher was a similar methodology. They only spoke Spanish. We were only allowed to speak Spanish. We had some general phrases on the board, puedo ir al baño, because if you need to go to the bathroom, you got to ask in Spanish. And, you had the general phrases there, but you continued that immersion. There was no English allowed. We had to pick that up and figure it out. And which made it very interesting for, any new students that came in and really didn't start there, and they jump in, they're having their first day, and like 3 chapters in, and they're like, I don't understand anything.
No, and it's like magic though. We had an event this morning with newly accepted kindergarten parents, and a question that comes up a lot is, what if I don't speak the language at home? We speak, we don't speak Spanish at home, and so my kid is fully immersed in Spanish, and so other parents that we invited, current parents, they said, you just have to trust the process. It's almost like magic. Your kids get it. They may not be fully responding in Spanish or French right away, but eventually it comes.
Yeah.
But again, it's that full immersion that you were talking about. So,
yeah, I mean, again, it won't be perfect, but I think there is something to that, that way of thinking. I might not have the answer, but I am thinking in terms of, hey, we're in a new language. I have to, compare it to here. And it's always that one question. It's like, what are you thinking? Do you dream? And do you think in your native tongue? Do you translate there? How does it come out? You know what I mean? So, that process gets going, even if they don't fully understand, or at least fully know how to respond in those situations. And at a young age, I mean, this is when you do it. Studies show this is when if you're going to be learning this and training your mind to get into this kind of mentality, this is when you do it.
Yeah, and I'm always amazed with our kids too, because they adapt. I mean, kids adapt so easily. They'll be on the playground and they have shared time on the playground together at recess, the kids on the Spanish track and the French track. And students will know, okay, this student here, he only speaks French. So I really got to try to use my French in order to play with him, or vice versa. So kids will adapt depending on the kids in the situation. So,
yeah. So, this is for younger age group, I guess. And you said in middle school they're able to add another one, and then in 8th grade. What happens after that as far as this the immersion program? Does it transform into something else?
It really depends. We have students that may decide to move away from the immersion program. There's not that many options in New York City and beyond to be fully immersed. But what will happen is if a student's been on the French track through 8th grade, and through 5th grade, and then they started picking up the 3rd language, and they started taking Spanish, they'll be so strong in Spanish by the end of 8th grade that they can jump right into an advanced level Spanish class, although they're a native French speaker. So their French, there's not going to be a school that can fully support the strength of their the initial target language. Unless they leave the country and go to a school that's a school that speaks, you're speaking French and Spanish. So that 3rd language, they'll jump right into an advanced class in high school. But there's just not that many options for full immersion for high school. So our kids will then choose. It could be something around art, could be something around performing, or traditional other independent schools. They have lots of options as they matriculate into high school.
Excellent. All right. So, IB's offered, with that international piece. Tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of helps with your enrollment or goes in tandem with, that international language immersion piece.
It does. It does go in tandem. I will say that initially parents look at us for the language. I'd say the majority of the families that I survey, like, why did you look at ISB? And the language immersion piece comes up. And then they realize we have an IB program. So, you've got the primary years program, which is our 3-year-olds through 5th grade, and then the middle years program, which is 6th through 8th grade. And so that inquiry-based learning, these kids, many times a lesson's driven by the kids. The ability to communicate. You walk into a classroom and you'll see kids that are able to just stop and explain. You know, I normally in normal years, in non-COVID years, I'm taking large groups of people around our building, and kids will stop and be able to communicate exactly what they're doing in class. They can do it in either English or French or Spanish. We do these student-led conferences, so kids are basically presenting to their parents with their teacher there as well what they're doing in class.
Okay.
And it's amazing to see these 5-year-olds just lead these conferences. These, you know, when I think of parent teacher conferences, I sit there and I think about in horror when my parents, you know, hearing from my teachers, and I'm like, oh God, what are you know, I was speaking in class all day yesterday. I'm sure they're going to share that, but not, you know, a student sitting there, a 5-year-old, and really talking about everything they're learning and things they need to improve on. And it's pretty amazing to watch.
No, yeah, that's very interesting, because I agree with you. When it was parent-teacher conference for me, even if I was doing well, it was the expectation of a consequence that I wasn't thinking about. You know, something I missed.
Exactly. Those homework assignments I missed, all that talking in class I did, you know.
That big sigh of relief. Well, Jesse's doing great. You know, we're very proud. I'm like, yes, all right. But yeah, exactly. I mean, running that meeting, it's great real life experience to get into that and have that expectation to prepare for something like this. You know, as a 5-year-old or kindergartner, you know, I mean, that's intense. That's good stuff right there.
No, and you know, one story that our high school when they come back to ISB after being in high school a year or two, one of the things that they always share is the lack of their classmates of being able to present in front of crowds, being able to communicate, being able to self-advocate, all those things that the IB really encourages kids to do. So
yeah, that's interesting. You know, on the enrollment side, you know, they hear about this language immersion. I imagine it's a lot of word of mouth. Like, how is this getting around in this area, especially with such a niche market? Obviously, it's drawing families to you guys. How are they getting to hear about you?
Certainly word of mouth, certainly having a friend that talks about our program. You know, there are several dual language public schools in our neighborhood in this area, on the French side and the Spanish side. So naturally, when kids graduate 5th grade, they look at our school for middle school. But you know, and your typical, all the ads that we need to do, the proper ads we need to do in marketing and admissions, but there's no better marketing for our school, and I'm sure most other schools, than our current parents. They spread the word, you know, kind of tell a friend to tell a friend thing. And we're also, you know, given how competitive New York City and Brooklyn are, we have a different program. You know, we really stand out. We've got this niche, as you were saying earlier, that other schools just don't have. Mm-hmm. And so that we really get a chance to stand out. So a lot of people are very curious about our program. And you know, Jesse, you and I have talked about this. I've been in admissions such a long time that, you know, I've got a nice base of consultants and various placement organizations around the area that are looking for great schools for their kids. And so I use that network a lot as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we've had a lot of conversation and you know, transitioning a little bit to this parent part. You know, word of mouth is obviously key. Having a program like this, I mean, you are finding families, or vice versa, the families are finding you that want this type of education. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is something you're not just like, hey, let's throw that into this. You know what I mean? Oh, you guys have language immersion. No. This is why we're coming, you know? Oh,
absolutely. And we're not a school that they just throw in their list of places they need to apply. Because look, New York City, if you're applying to kindergarten, you're going to need to find 5 to 7 schools. If we're looking at independent schools, you know, people are looking at us because they've done their research. They know what they're getting themselves into. So that's something that that's one great thing as I look through applicant families. You know, I know they're really dedicated to our program.
Yeah, that's great, and that involvement is so crucial to anything that an independent school is doing, no matter what your program is. You know, having that parent buy-in and communication. You know, really, because the parents, you know, at least on my end, like I want to be as supportive, because I actually, you know, come from an independent school. I worked in independent school. So now that my kids are in, you know, their you know, private daycares, I'm like, I want to be supportive throughout this whole process until they graduate and after, you know, help me be that parent. You know, sometimes
Yeah.
I might be doing something at home that has nothing to do with what they should be doing in the classroom. I just
Exactly.
don't know. But having that two-way communication street is so crucial. And, you know, ISB, I would say is not the only or unique in this regard, but definitely it's not quite common to hear how much the parent involvement is throughout every start of the process. I mean, you have parents on the board and as well, from what I understand. Okay.
And our school was founded by parents. You know, there are parents that are looking for language immersion in IB, so it's founded by parents. So we don't function and we don't exist as a school without parents. And so really in these challenging times during COVID and really trying to convince people to come to a school sight unseen, you know, my best advocates are my current families, and I can put a prospective family in touch with a current family, and they can ask those tough questions and have that open dialogue about, you know, what do you love about the school? What are some areas that you would like to see changed, or and talk about personal experiences. So, yeah, we're all about parents at our school.
How are there any programs or any ways other than what you kind of just described with, you know, having them work with you in regards to new students or possibly even retention? I know that's kind of where we are right now at the time of year. You know, how do you are able to engage them in those kind of processes?
I mean, that's a great question. So we have parent ambassadors that help me with the admissions process, that help give, you know, when I give tours, they tag along and they answer questions as it relates to their experience and their kids' experiences. We have buddy families. So once a family's admitted, then they're paired up with the buddy family that they can be that point person. And then, you know, then there's various committees, and it's the second you're admitted at ISB, you're a member of our parents association.
Okay.
So right away, then we start having our board chair, the president of our PA. They start reaching out to those families when they're enrolled, and let them know all the opportunities to get involved at school.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. I mean, that is word of mouth 2.0. I mean, that's what you want to be doing there. That's a great program to be getting their involvement and their buy-in. You know, one thing, especially with language programs, at least, you know, in my experience, when we had a boarding component at the school that I was at, obviously we had a large international population there. It was one of their, targets as well, and part of their mission. So language, you know, when we used to travel around the world, those language summer programs were such perfect little first steps into the school. And great opportunities. And it was always, you know, talking with colleagues, it was always this balance of, schools wanting to do summer programs, or maybe they already are, these extra revenue models, you know, are they missing out? How do we build these things up? So, you know, now that we're starting to get into, I would imagine for most schools, summer camps, summer programs, enrollments, you know, usually around in March or so. Yeah. Do you guys have something similar for that? You know, something for the kids to go into, extra revenue models, maybe a way for someone to get a taste of what they could expect for the full year program? What does that look like for you?
No, that's one of our ways. That's another one of our marketing strategies is we offer a language immersion program in the summer immersion. And so they can do, you know, one week at a time, and they get fully immersed. And it's a wonderful way for families that are thinking about us, and also for families that have already signed on to come to ISB. Then they get a chance to meet our teachers, go through our program in the summer as they get ready for the fall. And like every other school, we don't just have immersion. We've got other programs as well. And, you know, through our summer program, after school program, and the vendors that come through, it is a nice little revenue, a nice little revenue strand for us. And it's something that schools, it's really been hurting schools this year, you know, not able to have these programs, not able to have outside vendors come in, because most schools aren't even letting parents in the door right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as the country starts to, you know, figure out what's going on with this virus. And so I think most schools are presenting their summer offerings as if it's going to happen, and then we'll see what happens. So.
Yeah, I mean, having them on campus in person and having all of those things set up 100% will be probably more time consuming as far as preparation is concerned than, transitioning to an online option or not having it, canceling it at all. You want to kind of prepare for what's going to take the meat of your time and energies. But I agree. From what I've heard, everyone seems to be planning on summer, including if they're having difficulties with their in-person right now. They expect it to be better in the summer with the vaccine rollouts. So.
Yeah, and they also, and look, we have our, our youngest kids are in school full time 5 days a week, and then the rest is starting 2nd through 8th right now because of space. I mean, we're in Brooklyn, we don't have that much room. In order to have social distancing, then we need to have our kids spaced out. But we're doing it. Our kids are here, so the summer program will be much easier because we spent, from March of 2020 through September. Of reopening, planning our reopening and everything that we needed to do. And then you learn along the way. So, so I think schools are going to be able to have summer programs. It'll be different than it was 2 years ago.
Absolutely. And I mean, it'll be well needed and well liked. I mean, there's a lot of, I know in my experience, there was a lot of students that needed the summer program. It wasn't even like a fun thing to do. Like they needed to stay on track, throughout those 2 or 3 months that they're going to be off. And it really benefited them to stay into that. And then to have last year, the pandemic, it canceled everything. No one knew we didn't have a good handle on it yet. We didn't even kind of know how it was transmitting and things, and there was nothing. And that lost generation of kids, it's not quite that large yet, but getting them involved, getting them back to normal as much as possible and as quickly as possible is going to be important. And I think this summer will be that first area where we can kind of see that after what we've all kind of experienced this year and trying to navigate it. But you're right, learning how to manage it. I mean, you could have every preparation and plan and every thought in the world, and then you get them here, and next thing you know, it's like, okay, we didn't think of that.
I mean, you got to have plans A, B, C, and D right these days. So I'm hoping. I mean, look, as a parent myself, and my kids just signed up for summer programs at my wife's school. We hope it happens. We purposely chose outdoor activities thinking that they have a stronger chance than some of the things indoors. But I mean, what an adjustment that we've had to make over the last, over a year now since January of 2020, really. So, yeah.
So, you got your summer programs, heavy parent involvement. How does that? I know the draw of the school is the language, obviously an international component, the culture that you have there. So, how does ISB outside of, these two programs kind of support and really promote that diversity on campus and really try to go out and get as diverse a population as you can, that's interested?
I mean, that's a goal of the school. And for me personally, as a student who was oftentimes one of the only students of color in my class, and then I've been the director of equity and inclusion at a couple different schools. And so with my experience on that side, and then plus the enrollment experience, you are always looking for families that will enrich your community and more and more diverse. And so, there's certainly we're always looking for more diversity, but then you got to have a strategy behind it. So between some placement organizations, partnering with certain organizations that help get students placed in independent schools, those are all things that are important to us. And talking about, and not just that, when we meet with families, we talk about our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and as if they're a good fit, no matter what their race or anything. Are you ready to take this journey with our school in these times, and what that looks like? And that's something that's really, really important to our school.
Yeah, and that is very important to relay to the prospective families. Not so much that you always want to let them know, obviously, what they're getting into and make sure that this is the right place for them. But when a school makes the decision to focus on that and really, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it, it really is the only way to build that model out. Yeah. But that's a part of the school. That's a part of the culture. That's part of what you should be expecting. And that's a part of, at least in our case, when we had, over 300 international students living with us, like this is a part of, what we expect you to be. We want you to be learning those. We want those interactions for you. If you're not okay with that, this might not be the best place.
No, and that's you're exactly right. If you're not okay with that, this might not be the best place for your family. And when you and I talked about that, that interesting component of having the international boarders and the day students and what that connection looks like. So I'm always amazed with that model with day students and international boarding students.
It's wild. I wasn't a day student. I was a boarder, but I lived like an hour and a half away. So it was a little too far to be a day student, but for sure I was from rural Zephyr Hills, Florida, the cow country. And, I loved it. I mean, for me, it was an unbelievable experience, but I could definitely see, we're in Florida where some people might not enjoy something like that. They don't want to make friends like that are from all over the different parts of the world and learn those kind of things. They're stuck in their ways and whatever the case may be. And, for me, the kids that I experienced, I mean, they were all about it. They understood that this was a unique experience to be able to kind of get that global interaction. And, luckily, I think the kids are more open to it today than they were in years past, especially with the knowledge of knowing how globalized everything is. Like, this is going to be a necessity. This isn't going anywhere. You're going to need to, having this opportunity gives you a leg up, when you get out into the workforce. You've had friends, you have connections already that are from a lot of different cultures, and you can use that. I use those experiences in the most random ways all the time. And it's great, that I was very fortunate to be at a school where, diversity was always a focus, where that component was there. And I hope that more schools get on board with that, because even as day schools, it grows the students more than what you can find in a textbook, because those are the things that they're going to learn that they can't just read about. They're going to experience, they're going to feel, they're going to build a relationship with someone they might not have known they would have. And that'll change everything for them.
No, and that's a primary reason why that's another reason why families look at our school is surrounding themselves with that global perspective. So
and it's a good try. I mean, there's schools that don't have it that are trying to build it. Sounds similarly like when you were a student, it wasn't quite there. They weren't against it, but it wasn't like the focal point. And then you have schools like yourself now that it's been the focal point since its inception. So it's a draw, like it's already here. Now we're just trying to cultivate it and keep it going, which is great. So, great insights there on those things. I definitely love to hear what the state of the region is. Over in Brooklyn. I mean, it's a very international place. What does enrollment look like with you? I don't know what's going on with COVID mandates or things that are going like that. What does the enrollment look like for Brooklyn?
Yeah, so it's enrollment for the fall has already started. So so families that have looked at independent schools, some decisions have already gone out. Others are coming out, and then families. So we'll really know more in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, but current enrollment is really strong. I think independent schools that have been able to be open and in person, the families are jumping right on that re-enrollment contract right away. And so they've been pleased with what's been happening at their schools. They don't want to take that chance. So families just aren't looking to apply out as much as they have in the past. And we have a 2-week turnaround with our enrollment, and right away our families got right back to me. And I was very, very surprised and pleasantly surprised with how many families are planning on coming back, which then, as for an admission standpoint, it keeps your admission strong, because now we have, way more applications than we do spaces.
Yep.
Which means it's a healthy school, and we're going to have a healthy wait list as things may happen in the spring and into the summer, and we need to fill spots. So right now things are good. I mean, families, schools have been able to help families struggling through the financial woes right now, and because we are in Brooklyn. We have families that are on Broadway. We have families that own restaurants. We have families that are artists and musicians, and those are industries that are struggling. And so we've really been able to shift and help focus on helping our current families make sure that they can stay at our school.
And I think that the pandemic, and we've talked about it in a lot of different ways on other shows and, amongst each other, obviously. But, this really gave the biggest opportunity to show the value of your school community.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk and focus on school community. But this really gave that opportunity to show it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our families are great kids, and they're going to be in some financial trouble because of things that are outside of their control. It's not an individual family. It's a whole industry as a whole. It's a whole nation as a whole. And, you broaden that out to the whole world. There's a lot of people in this situation, and be able to come together as a community, work with families where you can. That's going to be that added value. Forget if you throw in, some of the public mandates that have happened that some schools had to do or didn't do, the opportunities that you would have had at this school, and you see what could have happened if you were somewhere else. All of that value gets added to where you send that contract out and it's like, here, take it. Thank you.
Away.
Let me know how I can help. You know what I mean? That's when you build that ambassador program right there.
I know, and I'm sure you've had folks on the show, but those enrollment managers, when you send those contracts out, you're looking in whatever database system you use, like, okay, how many people have opened it? How many people have signed it? Oh my God, okay, come on. You spend those 2 weekends and look, it's a quick turnaround. Ours were due back on January 29th, and our first notification was February 4th. So that's not a long turnaround to let prospective families know if we have spaces.
Yeah.
So there's a lot riding on enrollment these days, and it's listen, if you don't have strong enrollment, you don't have a strong school. Yeah. So it really there's the base to schools these days, and it's been like this forever, but enrollment makes for a strong school. Strong enrollment makes for a strong school.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many different aspects to it. Like if you don't have strong enrollment, you kind of have to worry about just making budget. Then what kind of culture do you have when you're just letting any kid in that can pay? You know what I mean? You don't get to have those kind of decisions and build that culture in the student body. I always found, one of the best parts, especially with a school that has, several programs. The one we had was kind of big with athletic programs, but, being able to try to manage, what kind of student comes in and, what their interest is, and is that the right fit, and, placing all that, and just, then you see those kids in action, and you're like, sure, the coaches are mainly involved in stuff, but as a admissions rep, bringing them in, you kind of feel like you had a part in building this success, and it's always a nice thing to see, especially when they thrive.
Yeah, and when you see kids come in, you see them grow, and then they graduate, and they reach back out to you, and you're like, oh my God, I remember him, and it's so nervous in the admissions process. Now look at him, he's running the world, So it's pretty amazing. That's one of the things, again, circling back, what I really love about admissions and enrollment is being able to help shape a school community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Torsie, we always like to end on a positive note. We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but what say you on the biggest enrollment opportunity you're kind of seeing maybe in your area or in the industry as a whole this year?
Yeah, I think families are looking for options, and they're really now that families have been home a lot and they're seeing how their kids learn. They've been
sometimes them teaching them.
Exactly. They've been knee deep in it, but I also think it's forced them to really, especially in this area, to really think about fit for their kid and what works for their kid and how they learn, what opportunities are out there for their kids to get something different than your traditional independent school. And so we've really benefited from that. And, I think we're 16. This is our 16th year. We're 16 years, but we're not quite the new school anymore. So we've been doing it long enough that we have a reputation. So, but again, I think parents being home, doing their research, understanding how their kids learn, it's really been a big opportunity for us this year.
I'm not so sure that's not going to be nationwide. That's an excellent point, and you're right. There's been, whether it's been a negative situation that's made them rethink, or maybe just an eye-opening one. Like it wasn't negative, it wasn't bad, but hey, the focus has been on the value of teachers, the value of schools, the values of what my kids are learning, and wow, it's been an eye opener for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine if I had to try to do all my work with my kids at home for any amount of time. The economy goes to a halt with that.
Yeah, make sure you appreciate faculty and all the work that they do and putting themselves out there in the front, literally the front lines this year.
Yep.
But I think that's a great opportunity, and hopefully it's working for schools all over the country. I mean, when you're in this enrollment and admissions network, you want to see every school do very well. All my friends out there working in admissions, I want them to have an extensive wait list, and they're fully enrolled. When school over enrolled's good. So.
Yep, absolutely. The strength of the industry is built off of everyone, and that's excellent. I really appreciate you taking the time today. We've got some great insights on these immersion programs. I'm sure they're going to be huge draws to your school for as long as you guys are offering them. I wish you the best of luck this enrollment season. I know that there's going to be some happy kindergartners tomorrow. Kindergarten's going out tomorrow, right?
Well, kindergarten went out last week. Tomorrow's grades 1 through 8. Hopefully there's a lot of happy people and you manage the sad ones, So but Jesse, this has been fantastic. I could sit and talk admissions and enrollment all day, all night. It's nice to be on the show.
Excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed everything that we had to say today. Torsie gave us some great insights. Be sure to catch this full episode on our YouTube channel or schoolcraftdigital.com, along with any of our other episodes that we've had this season. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.